The blood scent hit Lord Vasilios Dragomir the moment he stepped out of the sleek black car, sharp and metallic beneath the clean bite of winter air, and his ancient instincts roared to violent life. His driver, Marcus, tensed behind the wheel, but Vasilios was already moving, his long coat billowing as he strode toward the narrow alley beside his corporate building. The snow fell in thick, silent sheets over the city, muffling sound and blanketing the world in white. It was past midnight, the streets abandoned, the modern world asleep while creatures like him walked freely in the darkness. He'd just returned from a particularly tedious board meeting. Mortals loved their bureaucracy when the scent caught him, human blood, fresh, spilling. He rounded the corner and stopped. A young man was crumpled against the brick wall, half buried in snow, his thin jacket soaked through and his dark hair plastered to his face. Blood seeped from a gash on his temple, staining the pristine white around him in spreading crimson. He was shivering so violently that Vasilios could hear his teeth chattering from 20 feet away. For a moment, the vampire king simply stared, his pale eyes silver as moonlight fixed on the dying human. He should walk away. Mortals expired all the time. It was the natural order of things. Their lives were brief, fragile, meaningless in the grand scope of eternity. But something about this one made him hesitate. The young man's eyes flickered open, glassy with pain and cold, and locked onto Vasilios. They were a deep, rich brown, warm even in the throes of hypothermia. His lips moved, forming words that barely made sound. "Please." Vasilios felt fury ignite in his chest, white hot and unexpected, not at the human, at whoever had left him here to die like garbage in the snow. The vampire crossed the distance in a blur of supernatural speed, kneeling beside the shivering figure. Up close, he could see the boy was young, perhaps mid-20s, with delicate features and skin that had gone dangerously pale beneath the blood and cold. "What happened?" Vasilios demanded, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. The young man's eyes struggled to focus. "Robbed. They took everything. Couldn't get home." His words slurred together, consciousness fading. Vasilios made a decision that would alter the course of both their lives. He stripped off his coat, the cold meant nothing to him, and wrapped it around the human's trembling frame. Then he lifted him as easily as one might lift a child, cradling him against his chest. The young man's head lolled against his shoulder, and Vasilios could feel the rapid, weakening flutter of his heartbeat. "Marcus," he called, his voice carrying with preternatural clarity. His driver appeared instantly, eyes widening at the sight of his master holding a bleeding human. "My lord?" "The penthouse, now. Call Dr. Thorne and tell him to meet us there immediately." Marcus knew better than to question. Within minutes, they were racing through the snow-covered streets, the unconscious human still wrapped in Vasilios's coat, blood seeping into the expensive fabric. The vampire held him carefully, his expression carved from ice, but his mind churned with questions. Why did he care? Why did the sight of this fragile mortal bleeding in the snow make him want to tear apart whoever was responsible? He was a king, a being who had walked the earth for over 8 centuries. He'd seen countless humans live and die. He had ended many of those lives himself when necessity or hunger demanded it. But looking down at the pale face, the dark lashes stark against too white skin, Vasilios felt something shift inside him, some long, dormant piece of his immortal heart stirring to life. The young man's eyes opened briefly, unfocused but trying so hard to stay conscious. "Cold," he whispered. "I know," Vasilios said, and his voice came out gentler than he'd intended. "Stay awake, we're almost there." Who are you?" "My name is Vasilios." A ghost of a smile touched the human's blue-tinged lips. "That's a mouthful." Despite everything, Vasilios felt his own mouth curve slightly. "You may call me Vas if you prefer. What's your name?" "Ren. Ren Young." His eyes fluttered closed again. "Ren," Vasilios repeated, testing the name. It suited him somehow, this fragile creature who'd been left to freeze. "Stay with me, Ren Young. Don't you dare die in my arms." They reached the penthouse, the top 15 floors of the building. Vasilios's private domain hidden in plain sight among the steel and glass of the modern city. Dr. Thorne, a vampire physician who'd served the Dragomir family for 3 centuries, was already waiting with a medical kit. Hypothermia and head trauma, Vasilios said curtly, laying Ren on the leather sofa with surprising care. Fix him. Thorn's eyebrows rose, fractionally. His lord had never shown interest in saving random mortals before, but he set to work immediately, checking vitals and applying pressure to the head wound. Vasilios stood back, watching with predatory focus as the doctor peeled away Ren's wet clothes and wrapped him in heated blankets, started an IV, cleaned and stitched the gash. He'll live, Thorn announced after 20 minutes, but it was close. Another hour in that cold and he would have been beyond saving. His core temperature is dangerously low. He needs to be monitored through the night. Then you'll stay, Vasilios ordered. My lord, I have other. The look Vasilios gave him could have frozen blood. You will stay until he is stable. Is that clear? Thorn bowed his head. Perfectly clear, my lord. Hours passed. Vasilios dismissed Marcus, but remained himself, seated in a high-backed chair across from the sofa where Ren slept fitfully. Dawn approached, but the penthouse windows were fitted with specialized glass that filtered all UV light, allowing him to move freely regardless of the sun's position. Outside, the city began to wake, but inside this sanctuary, time seemed suspended. Ren's color had improved, the deathly pallor giving way to healthier tones. His breathing had steadied, his heartbeat growing stronger. Vasilios found himself listening to that rhythm, that fragile, mortal percussion that marked the passing of a human life. Why? Thorn asked quietly, appearing at his elbow with a glass of blood warmed from the stock Vasilios kept for sustenance. Why what? Vasilios accepted the glass but didn't drink. Why save him? You don't know this human. He's nothing to you. Vasilios was silent for a long moment, his pale eyes fixed on Ren's sleeping face. I don't know, he admitted finally. But when I saw him there, dying in the snow, I felt rage, pure incandescent rage that someone had left him there, that the world would allow something so... He trailed off, searching for the word. Unjust? Thorn supplied. Yes. Vasilios took a sip of blood, barely tasting it. Unjust. You're the vampire king. You've committed acts that mortals would call far worse than leaving a man in the cold. That's different. Those were matters of survival, of politics, of war. This was... Vasilios's jaw tightened. Waste. Cruelty without purpose. He's young, healthy, intelligent. I could see it in his eyes even as he was dying. To discard such potential over a few dollars or possessions? It offends me. Thorn studied his master with ancient knowing eyes. Or perhaps you simply found him beautiful. Vasilios's head snapped toward the doctor, his expression dangerous. Careful. I've served your family for 300 years. My lord, I know what I see. Thorn gestured at Ren. When was the last time you felt anything for another being? When did you last care whether someone lived or died? I care about my people, about our kind. That's duty. I'm speaking of genuine emotion. Thorn's voice was gentle but insistent. You've been hollow for so long, Vasilios. Ruling, administrating, surviving, but not truly living. Perhaps this boy is the first thing in centuries to make you feel something real. Before Vasilios could respond, Ren stirred, his eyes opening slowly. They were clearer now, more focused, and they found Vasilios immediately. Recognition flickered across his face. You're real, Ren said, his voice rough but stronger than before. I thought maybe I dreamed you. Vasilios stood, moving to the sofa with fluid grace. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck and then frozen. Ren tried to sit up, winced, and Vasilios was there immediately, supporting him with a hand on his shoulder. The touch sent an unexpected jolt through the vampire, the warmth of living skin against his palm. Where am I? My home. You were dying in the alley beside my building. I brought you here for treatment. Ren's eyes widened as he took in the surroundings, the vast, luxurious penthouse with its dark wood, leather furniture, and floor-to-ceiling windows showing the snow-covered city below. This is... You live here? I do. Then you must be... Ren's gaze traveled over Vasilios, really seeing him for the first time. The vampire knew what he saw, pale skin that seemed to glow faintly in the low light, white hair that fell past his shoulders in a sleek curtain, silver eyes that no human possessed, aristocratic features that were almost too perfect to be real. Vasilios wore black, always black tailored clothing that spoke of wealth and power. "You're not human," Ren finished quietly. Most mortals would have screamed, run, denied the evidence before their eyes, but Ren simply watched him with those warm brown eyes, intelligent and accepting. "No," Vasilios confirmed. "I'm not." "Vampire?" "Yes." Ren nodded slowly, as if this confirmed something he'd suspected. "That explains the whole impossibly beautiful and terrifying at the same time thing you've got going on." He paused. "Are you going to kill me?" "If I wanted you dead, I wouldn't have saved you," Vasilios pointed out, a hint of dry amusement in his tone. "Pah, fair point." Ren relaxed slightly, though he kept his eyes on Vasilios. "So why did you save me?" "I'm nobody. Just a—" He hesitated. "Well, I was a clerk at a bookstore until it closed last month. Been doing odd jobs to make rent. Last night's paycheck got stolen along with my phone and wallet." "You're not nobody," Vasilios said firmly, "and you were left to die. I found that unacceptable." Something shifted in Ren's expression, a softness that made Vasilios's long-dead heart ache inexplicably. "Thank you," he said simply. "For my life." Thorne cleared his throat diplomatically. "I'll leave you both to talk. The young man needs rest, food, and continued warmth. No going outside for at least 48 hours. I'll return tomorrow evening to check on his progress." He bowed to Vasilios. "My lord." After the doctor left, silence settled between them. Ren pulled the blanket closer around himself, and Vasilios noticed he was wearing borrowed clothes, soft sleep pants, and a sweater that were far too large for his slender frame. They were Vasilios's own, he realized. Someone, probably Marcus, had changed him while he was unconscious. "You're staring," Ren observed, but there was no fear in his voice. Curiosity, maybe, interest. "I'm trying to understand why you're not afraid." "Should I be?" "Most humans would be." Ren considered this. "You saved my life. You brought me to your home, had a doctor treat me, gave me your clothes." He gestured at the oversized sweater. "Those aren't the actions of someone I need to fear. Besides, if an 800-year-old vampire wanted to hurt me, I couldn't exactly stop you, could I?" "How did you know my age?" A small smile played at Ren's lips. "I didn't. But you just confirmed you're old. The specific number was a guess based on how you carry yourself, like royalty, like someone who's commanded others for a very long time." Vasilios found himself returning the smile. "You're perceptive. I read a lot. Studied history in college before I had to drop out to work. Always been fascinated by the old world, ancient civilizations, mythology." Ren's eyes brightened with enthusiasm despite his exhaustion. "I guess I never really believed it was all myth, though some part of me always wondered if the old stories might be true. They are. Most of them anyway. Embellished and distorted over time, but rooted in reality." "Are there others like you? Other vampires?" "Many. We live hidden among humanity, have for millennia. We have our own society, our own laws, our own politics." Vasilios moved to sit in the chair opposite the sofa, elegant and relaxed, every inch the king he was. "I rule the North American territory. Everything from Canada to Mexico falls under my jurisdiction." Ren's eyes widened. "You're literally a king. Lord Vasilios Dragomir, Vampire King of the North American domain, though I prefer to keep that title private in mortal circles. In the human world, I'm simply the CEO of Dragomir Enterprises." He paused. "You're taking this remarkably well." "I'm probably in shock," Ren admitted. "Or maybe I'm just too tired to freak out properly. Ask me again tomorrow and I might be screaming." But his tone suggested otherwise, suggested that Ren was exactly the type of person who could face the impossible with calm acceptance. They talked through the rest of the night and into the morning. Vasilios found himself revealing things he rarely discussed: the weight of immortality, the loneliness of watching centuries pass, the complexity of ruling a hidden kingdom within the modern world. Ren listened with rapt attention, asking intelligent questions, making observations that showed he grasped the implications of what Vasilios told him. In turn, Ren shared his own story. 24 years old, orphaned at 16, worked his way through 3 years of university before money ran out. He'd loved his job at the bookstore, spent his evenings reading everything he could get his hands on, dreamed of someday being a writer himself. The robbery had taken the last of his money, left him stranded miles from his tiny apartment with no way to get home. "I thought I was going to die," Ren said quietly, staring at his hands. "I could feel myself getting colder and colder, my thoughts getting slower. I tried to stay awake, but everything just kept fading. Then you appeared, and I thought maybe you were an angel or something my dying brain made up because you were so—" He blushed, ducking his head. "So what?" Vasilios prompted, leaning forward slightly. "Beautiful," Ren finished softly. "Impossible and beautiful. I figured death wouldn't be so bad if that's what came for me." Something powerful moved through Vasilios at those words, something he hadn't felt in centuries, desire mixed with tenderness, possession mixed with the need to protect. This fragile human, with his warm eyes and gentle voice, had slipped past every defense the ancient vampire had built over 800 years of existence. "I'm no angel," Vasilios said, his voice lower, rougher. "I've done terrible things, Ren. Killed without mercy when needed, ruled with an iron fist. I'm a predator, and your kind are meant to be prey." Ren looked up, meeting his eyes without flinching. "But you saved me anyway." "Yes." "Why?" Vasilios could have lied, should have lied. Instead, he found himself telling the truth, because the thought of you dying, of your light going out of the world, filled me with rage, because something in me recognized something in you, and I couldn't let you go. Because in 8 centuries of existence, I've never felt what I felt when I saw you in that alley. The air between them charged with tension, electric and undeniable. Ren's breath caught, his pupils dilating, his heartbeat quickening in a way that had nothing to do with fear. Vasilios could smell the shift in his scent, the subtle change that spoke of attraction, of desire. "What did you feel?" Ren whispered. "Everything," Vasilios admitted, "after centuries of feeling nothing at all." They stared at each other, the moment stretching taut, and then Ren yawned despite himself, exhaustion pulling at him. Vasilios stood immediately, the spell breaking. "You need rest. Real rest. Come." He led Ren to one of the guest bedrooms, a spacious room decorated in deep blues and grays, with a massive bed piled high with pillows and blankets. Ren climbed into it obediently, still wrapped in Vasilios's borrowed clothes, and the vampire found himself pulling the covers up around him with his own hands, a gesture so domestic and tender it would have shocked anyone who knew him. "Sleep," Vasilios commanded gently. "You're safe here. I'll be nearby if you need anything." "Will you be here when I wake up?" Ren asked, his eyes already drifting closed. Yes?" "Promise?" Vasilios felt something crack in his chest, some ancient wall crumbling. "I promise." He watched Ren fall asleep, listened to his breathing even out, and knew with absolute certainty that his existence had just changed irrevocably. This human, this fragile, beautiful mortal, had become important to him in a matter of hours. The implications were staggering, dangerous, impossible. And Vasilios didn't care. He would protect Ren, keep him safe, give him everything he needed. And if anyone tried to harm him again, Vasilios would show them exactly why he'd ruled as Vampire King for 300 years. The snow continued to fall outside, blanketing the city in white, as Vasilios settled into a chair beside Ren's bed and began his vigil. 3 days passed in a strange, suspended reality. Ren recovered quickly under Thorn's care and Vasilios's constant attention. The vampire found himself rearranging his schedule to spend time with his unexpected guest, delegating meetings and pushing back appointments that could wait. His staff noticed the change immediately, but were far too wise to comment. Ren explored the penthouse like a curious cat, marveling at Vasilios's extensive library, asking questions about the art on the walls, pieces collected over centuries, some of them priceless originals from long-dead masters. He was careful not to overstep, always polite, but his enthusiasm was infectious. "This is a real Caravaggio," Ren breathed, standing before a dark, dramatic painting in the hallway. "I saw prints in textbooks, but in person it's—" "Breathtaking," Vasilios supplied, coming to stand beside him. "I commissioned it in 1602. Caravaggio was difficult to work with, brilliant but temperamental. Worth the trouble, though. Ren turned to stare at him. You knew Caravaggio, personally. You commissioned work from him. I've known many artists over the years, composers, writers, painters. Immortality has some advantages. That's incredible. Ren's face glowed with wonder, and Vasilios found himself wanting to give him more of that expression, wanting to show him everything, tell him all the stories of his long existence just to see that joy. They fell into an easy routine. Vasilios worked in the evenings when his businesses required attention, but his nights were spent with Ren talking, sharing meals, Ren eating human food while Vasilios sipped blood from crystal glasses, watching the snow fall over the city. Ren asked endless questions about vampire society, and Vasilios found himself explaining things he'd never bothered to discuss with mortals before. So, there are other vampire territories around the world? Ren asked on the fourth night, curled up on the sofa with a book while Vasilios reviewed contracts at his desk. Yes. Europe is divided among several old families. Asia has its own power structure, very different from ours. Africa, South America, every continent has its rulers, its hierarchies. We maintain a delicate balance, mostly peaceful, though conflicts do arise. And you're one of the most powerful. In terms of pure strength and age, yes. In terms of political influence, Vasilios set down his pen, giving Ren his full attention. I control significant resources. The business empire I've built gives me leverage beyond just supernatural power. But there are others who could challenge me if they chose. Has anyone tried? Not in a century. The last one who attempted it learned why it's unwise to provoke me. Vasilios's expression went cold, dangerous, his eyes glowing faintly silver. I don't enjoy violence, but I'm very, very good at it when necessary. Instead of looking afraid, Ren simply nodded thoughtfully. You do what you have to do to protect your people. That's what a good king does. You truly aren't afraid of me, are you? Ren set down his book and met Vasilios's eyes directly. Should I be honest? Always. I'm not afraid of you. I've seen how you are when you think no one's watching the way you move, the way you think about things. You're careful, controlled, powerful, yes. But you're not cruel, not for cruelty's sake. He searched for the word. Noble, in the old sense. You have a code, principles you live by. That's not frightening, it's admirable. Vasilios felt something warm unfurl in his chest. You see more than most. I pay attention. Ren smiled softly. And you've been kind to me. Kinder than anyone has been in a long time. Why would I fear someone who's shown me nothing but care? The vampire stood, crossing to the sofa with that predatory grace that was pure instinct. He sat beside Ren, closer than he'd allowed himself before, and reached out to tuck a strand of dark hair behind the human's ear. Ren's breath hitched at the contact, but he didn't pull away. You've become important to me, Vasilios said quietly. In a very short time, you've become someone I care about, someone I want to protect. I feel it too, Ren whispered. This connection between us. I don't understand it, but it's there. Like I was meant to end up in that alley, meant for you to find me. Fate, Vasilios murmured, his thumb tracing Ren's cheekbone. I stopped believing in fate centuries ago. But perhaps I was wrong. They were so close now, Ren's warmth radiating against Vasilios's cool skin, their faces inches apart. The vampire could hear Ren's heart racing, smell the sweet rush of his blood, feel the pull of desire between them like a physical force. Vasilios, Ren breathed, and the sound of his name in that voice undid the last of the vampire's legendary control. He kissed him. It was gentle at first, testing, giving Ren every chance to pull away. But the human made a soft sound and leaned in instead, his hands coming up to rest on Vasilios's chest, his lips parting in invitation. The vampire deepened the kiss, one hand sliding into Ren's hair while the other pulled him closer, and for the first time in 800 years, Vasilios felt alive. Ren kissed like he did everything else with complete honesty, holding nothing back. There was no artifice, no games, just pure, genuine emotion that threatened to overwhelm Vasilios's ancient heart. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, though only one of them needed to breathe. Wren's eyes were dark with desire and something deeper, something that looked dangerously like love. "Stay with me," Vasilios said, and it came out more plea than command. "Not just tonight. Stay here. Let me take care of you. Let me—" "Yes," Wren interrupted, laughing softly. "Yes, Vasilios. I'll stay." They kissed again and again, losing themselves in each other until the sky outside began to lighten with dawn. Only then did they reluctantly part, Wren yawning and Vasilios feeling the pull of day sleep tugging at him despite the UV-filtered windows. "Come," Vasilios said, leading Wren to the master bedroom, his bedroom, a place no one else had ever been invited. The room was dominated by a massive four-poster bed with black silk sheets, surrounded by heavy curtains that could block out all light. "Sleep here, with me." Wren looked at the bed, then at Vasilios, understanding in his eyes. "You sleep during the day? The sun weakens us, makes us vulnerable. I can stay awake if I must, but it's draining. I prefer to rest during daylight hours." "Then rest." Wren climbed into the bed, patting the space beside him. "I'll be here when you wake up." Vasilios joined him, pulling Wren against his chest, marveling at the trust this human showed him. He could kill Wren so easily while he slept, drain him dry without effort, but instead, the mortal curled into him like he belonged there, his head tucked under Vasilios's chin, his breathing already evening out into sleep. "Mine," Vasilios whispered into the darkness, his arms tightening protectively around Wren. "You're mine now, and I'll never let anything hurt you again." He felt Wren smile against his chest, felt the human's fingers curl into his shirt, and knew that whatever came next, whatever challenges they faced, they would face them together. The days blurred into weeks. Wren officially moved into the penthouse, though he'd brought almost nothing with him. Everything he owned had fit into 2 worn duffel bags. Vasilios immediately set about rectifying that, taking him shopping at night, always at night, for clothes, books, anything Wren showed even passing interest in. "You don't have to do this," Wren protested as Vasilios handed over a credit card for the 3rd time that evening. "I can get a job, pay for my own things." "I know you can," Vasilios said calmly. "But I want to do this. Let me take care of you, Wren. It gives me pleasure to see you happy." "I've never had anyone take care of me before," Wren admitted quietly. "Not since my parents died." Vasilios pulled him close, right there in the middle of the upscale boutique, uncaring of the stares they received. "You have me now. Everything I have is yours." But Wren was stubborn in his own gentle way. A week later, he announced he'd found a job. "At the bookstore 2 blocks from your building," he said over breakfast. Coffee and pastries for him warmed blood for Vasilios. "It's a small independent place, but the owner's nice and they need a clerk who knows literature. It's perfect." Vasilios's first instinct was to forbid it, to keep Wren safe in the penthouse where nothing could touch him. But he saw the excitement in those brown eyes, the pride, and he swallowed the command. "You'll be careful?" he asked instead. "I'll be careful. And it's only a few blocks. I can walk there and back easily. Marcus will drive you." "Vasilios." "Non-negotiable." The vampire's tone left no room for argument. "You were attacked once. I won't risk it happening again. Marcus will drive you to work and pick you up when your shift ends." Wren sighed but nodded. "Okay, thank you." The job was good for him. Vasilios could see it in the way Wren glowed when he came home each evening, carefully timed to arrive just after sunset so Vasilios would be awake, chattering about customers and book recommendations and the comfortable old building with its creaking floors and endless shelves. He'd found his place in the world again, his purpose, and it made him happy. But happiness, Vasilios had learned, was always fragile. It happened on a Thursday evening. Marcus called Vasilios in a panic, his usually calm voice tight with fear. "My lord, Wren isn't at the bookstore. The owner said he left an hour ago, said he wanted to walk and get some air. I've been searching, but I can't find him." Vasilios went perfectly still, the way apex predators do before they strike. "What do you mean you can't find him?" "He's not answering his phone. I've driven the route between here and the bookstore 3 times. My lord, I'm sorry. I should have insisted on waiting for him inside." "Find him," Vasilios snarled, his voice dropping into tones of pure command. "Now. Call in everyone. Search every street, every alley, every building. Find him or don't bother coming back." He ended the call and moved, a blur of supernatural speed as he dressed and armed himself. Ren had been missing for an hour, 60 minutes in which anything could have happened. The thought of him hurt, afraid, calling for help that wouldn't come, it made something savage and ancient rise up in Vasilios's chest. His phone rang. Unknown number. "Speak," he answered coldly. "Lord Dragomir." The voice was cultured, amused, and utterly unfamiliar. "I have something of yours. Someone, rather. A pretty little human who's been asking for you quite desperately." Vasilios's hand tightened around the phone, the metal creaking. "If you've hurt him, nothing permanent yet, but that could change quickly if you don't listen very carefully to my instructions." "Who are you?" "My name is Konstantin Volkov. Perhaps you remember my brother, Alexei? You killed him 80 years ago in St. Petersburg over a territorial dispute." The memory came back instantly, a vampire who'd tried to expand his influence into Vasilios's territory, who'd slaughtered a dozen humans in the process. Vasilios had ended him personally, swiftly, without mercy. "I remember," he said flatly. "Your brother was a fool who broke our laws. His death was justified." "Perhaps, but he was still my blood, and I've waited a long time for the right moment to make you pay for his execution." Konstantin's voice hardened. "You're going to meet me, alone, unarmed. You're going to submit to judgment for my brother's death, and if you comply without resistance, I'll let your little pet live. If not—" The sound of Ren's pained cry came through the phone, sharp and cut off abruptly. Well, humans are so very fragile. Rage, unlike anything Vasilios had felt in centuries, exploded through him. The windows of the penthouse cracked, spiderwebbing outward from the force of his power, manifesting physically. Furniture rattled, lights flickered. "Where?" he ground out, every word dripping venom. Konstantin gave him an address, an abandoned warehouse in the industrial district. "1 hour, Lord Dragomir. Come alone or he dies screaming." The line went dead. Vasilios stood perfectly still for 10 seconds, controlling his fury, channeling it into cold purpose. Then he made a series of calls. To Thorn, to his second-in-command, a vampire named Lucian, who'd served him for 2 centuries. To Marcus, giving him the address and very specific instructions. He was moving before he'd finished the last call, a dark shadow flowing through the city streets faster than human eyes could track. Rage gave him speed, desperation gave him focus. Ren was in danger because of him, because Vasilios had failed to protect what was his. That was unacceptable. The warehouse was exactly what he'd expected, abandoned, isolated, perfect for an ambush. Vasilios entered through the front door, not bothering with stealth. His presence announced itself, power radiating from him like heat from a furnace. "Konstantin!" he called, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. "I'm here. Show yourself." Lights blazed on, revealing the warehouse's interior. And there, in the center of the space, was Ren. He was bound to a chair, his face bruised, his clothes torn. Blood trickled from a cut above his eye, and his lip was split. But his eyes, those warm brown eyes, locked onto Vasilios with desperate relief. "Vas," he breathed. Vasilios started forward, but a figure melted out of the shadows, moving to stand behind Ren. Konstantin Volkov was tall and pale like all their kind, with white blonde hair and eyes like chips of ice. He placed one hand on Ren's shoulder in a gesture that made Vasilios want to tear him apart. "Not another step," Konstantin warned, "or I snap his neck." Vasilios froze, every muscle locked with the effort of not launching himself at the other vampire. "Let him go. This is between us." "Exactly. This is about making you suffer as I suffered. My brother was everything to me, and you took him away. Now I'll take away the one thing you've cared about in centuries." Konstantin's hand moved to Ren's throat, and the human gasped as fingers tightened. "I did my research, Lord Dragomir. The great vampire king who never showed interest in anyone, suddenly keeping a human pet, taking him shopping, letting him live in your home, kissing him in public places. It's almost sweet." "Ren has nothing to do with old conflicts," Vasilios said, his voice deadly calm despite the panic clawing at his chest. "He's innocent. Punish me if you must, but let him go." "Why would I do that? Your death would be too quick, too easy. But making you watch him die, making you live with that loss for eternity, now that's fitting revenge." Ren made a choked sound, and Vasilios saw red. "I'll give you anything," he said, and heard the desperation in his own voice. Didn't care. "Territory, money, power, my submission, name your price, but don't hurt him." The great Vasilios Dragomir, begging. Constantine smiled, cold and triumphant. "I never thought I'd see this day." "Please," Vasilios said, and the word cost him everything. "Please. I love him." Ren's eyes went wide, tears spilling down his cheeks. Constantine's smile widened. "Then watch him." The warehouse exploded into chaos. Lucian and 6 other vampires burst through the windows and doors simultaneously, moving with coordinated precision. Constantine whirled, caught off guard, his hand loosening on Ren's throat just enough. Vasilios didn't hesitate. He was across the space in a heartbeat, ripping the other vampire away from Ren, his hands finding Constantine's throat in turn. They went down in a tangle of supernatural fury, moving too fast for human eyes to follow. Constantine was old, strong, but Vasilios was older, stronger, and powered by protective rage that made him nearly unstoppable. They crashed through walls, shattered concrete, their fight a storm of violence and power. "You made a mistake," Vasilios snarled, driving Constantine into the floor hard enough to crack it. "You threatened what's mine." "He's made you weak," Constantine spat, clawing at Vasilios's face. "No." Vasilios caught his wrists, held them with irresistible strength. "He's made me remember why I fight, why I rule, why I protect." His eyes blazed silver, his fangs fully extended. "And now you'll pay for touching him." It was over quickly after that. Vasilios was beyond mercy, beyond restraint. By the time Lucian pulled him off, Constantine was barely conscious, broken and bleeding on the warehouse floor. "My lord," Lucian said carefully, "he's done. See to your human." Vasilios dropped Constantine like garbage and spun, finding Ren immediately. The human had been freed from the chair and was being supported by Marcus, who'd appeared during the fight. Ren was shaking, crying, reaching for Vasilios with desperate hands. The vampire went to him, pulled him close, buried his face in Ren's hair, and just breathed him in alive, safe, his. Ren clung to him, sobbing against his chest, and Vasilios made soothing sounds, gentling him with touches that were impossibly tender after such violence. "I've got you," Vasilios murmured. "You're safe now. I'm so sorry, Ren. So sorry." "You came," Ren choked out. "You came for me." "Always, I'll always come for you." Vasilios pulled back just enough to cup Ren's face, his thumbs wiping away tears. "Did you hear what I said before? What I told him?" Ren nodded, fresh tears spilling over. "You said you loved me." "I do. I love you, Ren Young. I've loved you since I found you dying in the snow. I love you more than I've loved anything in 8 centuries of existence." Vasilios kissed him, soft and reverent. "You're my heart, my humanity, my reason for everything." "I love you too," Ren whispered against his lips. "I've been afraid to say it, afraid it was too soon or too impossible. But I love you, Vasilios. I love you so much." They kissed again, deeper this time, pouring everything they felt into it. Around them, the other vampires discreetly looked away, giving them privacy in the moment. Finally, Vasilios turned to where Constantine lay broken. "Take him to the council," he ordered Lucian. "He broke our laws by involving a human in vampire politics, by threatening one under my protection. Let them judge him." "And if they're lenient?" Lucian asked. Vasilios' smile was cold and sharp. "They won't be, not when I testify personally about what he did. But if somehow they are," his eyes flashed silver, "I'll finish what I started." "Yes, my lord." Vasilios gathered Ren into his arms, cradling him carefully, and nodded to Marcus. "The car. We're going home." The drive back to the penthouse was quiet except for Ren's occasional trembles. Vasilios held him the entire time, his presence a solid protective anchor. Once home, he carried Ren directly to the bathroom, started filling the huge marble tub with hot water, and carefully undressed him, checking for injuries with gentle, thorough hands. "Just bruises," Ren said quietly. He mostly just wanted to scare me, use me as bait." "It worked," Vasilios admitted, helping him into the bath. "I would have done anything he asked, given up anything. All he had to do was threaten you." Ren caught his hand, holding tight. "That's not weakness, Vas. That's love." It felt like weakness in the moment, like a vulnerability I couldn't afford. Vasilios knelt beside the tub, his clothes still spattered with Constantine's blood. I've been alive for so long, Ren. I've watched empires rise and fall. I've loved before, lost before, but never like this, never with this intensity. You've become necessary to me in a way that terrifies me. I'm just human, Ren said softly. Fragile and temporary. How can someone like me be necessary to someone like you? Because you make me feel, Vasilios said simply. For centuries, I've been going through the motions of existence, ruling because that's what I do, surviving because that's what we do, but not truly living, not feeling joy or wonder or hope. Then I found you, and suddenly everything had color again. Purpose, meaning. He brought Ren's hand to his lips, kissing the knuckles. You're my humanity, Ren. The part of me I thought I'd lost forever. And yes, you're fragile, and yes, you're temporary by the standards of my kind, but that just makes every moment with you more precious. Ren's eyes filled with tears again, but they were different tears now, soft and warm rather than panicked. I never thought I could have this, someone who looked at me the way you do, who'd fight for me, who'd move heaven and earth to keep me safe. I spent so long just surviving, just getting by, and then you appeared in the snow, like something out of a dream. I was the one who appeared? Vasilios raised an eyebrow. You were the one dying dramatically in an alley, looking far too beautiful for your own good. A watery laugh escaped Ren. Is that why you saved me? Because I was pretty? Partially, Vasilios admitted with a slight smile. But mostly because I looked at you and felt something shift in my chest, like a key turning in a lock I didn't know existed, like fate itself had arranged for me to find you in that exact moment. They were quiet for a while as Ren soaked, the hot water easing his bruises and the tension from his muscles. Vasilios stayed beside him, occasionally reaching out to touch him as if reassuring himself Ren was really there, really safe. What happens now? Ren asked eventually. With the council and Constantine and everything? The council will handle Constantine according to our laws. He'll be punished severely for what he did. As for us, Vasilios paused, choosing his words carefully. The vampire world knows about you now. They know you're important to me. That makes you both protected and a potential target. Protected? Harming you would mean declaring war on me, and very few vampires are foolish enough to do that. You're under my protection officially now, which carries significant weight in our society. And a target? Because anyone who wants to hurt me might try to use you to do it. What Constantine did was desperate and stupid, but others might be more subtle, more dangerous. Vasilios's expression went hard, which is why I need to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before answering. Ren sat up slightly, water streaming down his chest. What is it? Would you consider becoming vampire, letting me turn you? The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Ren's eyes went wide, his breath catching. Turn me, he repeated. Make me like you. Immortal, powerful, able to stand at my side as an equal rather than someone I have to constantly protect. Vasilios's voice was urgent now, passionate. I know it's a massive decision, Ren. I know what I'm asking you to give up: the sun, mortal food, the possibility of a normal life. But you'd gain so much. Time, endless time together, strength, the ability to defend yourself. And, he hesitated, me, forever, if you wanted me. If I wanted you? Ren reached out, cupping Vasilios's face. Vas, I can't imagine ever not wanting you. You're everything to me. Then say yes. Let me turn you. Let me give you eternity. Ren was quiet for a long moment, his eyes searching Vasilios's face. The vampire waited, barely breathing, everything in him tensed for the answer. Yes, Ren said finally, and Vasilios's heart, silent for centuries, seemed to beat once in his chest. But not yet. Not yet? I want to live a little as a human first, experience things in the daylight, resolve some loose ends, make peace with the life I'm leaving behind. Give me, he considered, 6 months, then I'll be ready, then I'll choose this life, choose you with no regrets. Vasilios wanted to argue, wanted to turn him immediately, bind him in immortality where nothing could ever take him away. But he saw the wisdom in Wren's request, the maturity. 6 months to say goodbye to mortality, to be certain of such a permanent choice. 6 months, he agreed. But you stay here with me. You let me protect you. And if at any point you change your mind, in either direction, you tell me immediately. Deal. Wren smiled, then pulled Vasilios down for a kiss that tasted of bathwater and promises. I love you. I love you, Vasilios returned, the words still foreign but perfect on his tongue. More than anything in any world. He helped Wren from the bath, dried him carefully, and dressed him in soft pajamas. They climbed into bed together as dawn approached, Wren tucked against Vasilios's chest, the vampire's arms wrapped protectively around him. Tell me a story, Wren murmured sleepily. Something from your long life, something happy. So Vasilios talked, his voice a low rumble in the darkness, telling Wren about Venice in the 1600s, about carnival masks and gondola rides and music that had filled the night air. Wren listened, asking occasional questions, his breathing slowly evening out into sleep. Vasilios held him as the sun rose outside their protected sanctuary, as the world turned and the city woke to a new day. He thought about the future, about the 6 months they had before everything changed, before Wren would become like him, immortal and powerful and his in every possible way. But he also thought about right now, this moment, holding his human lover close and feeling more content than he had in 8 centuries. Sometimes he realized the best moments were the simple ones, the quiet ones, the ones where nothing dramatic happened, where it was just 2 people, or 1 person and 1 vampire, existing together in peace. The 6 months passed in a blur of happiness. Vasilios rearranged his entire existence around Wren's mortal schedule, working while Wren slept, spending his waking hours in Wren's company. They explored the city together after sunset museums, theaters, restaurants where Wren ate and Vasilios watched with fond amusement. Wren kept his job at the bookstore, and Vasilios visited him there sometimes, sitting in quiet corners, reading while his lover helped customers and organized shelves. The vampire world adapted to Wren's presence with surprising grace. Thorn became a regular fixture, dropping by to check on Wren and staying for long conversations about literature and history. Lucian was more reserved but respectful, acknowledging Wren's importance to his lord without question. Other vampires who did business with Vasilios learned quickly to treat Wren with deference or face their king's wrath. Wren flourished under the attention and security. He started writing again, his novel taking shape in late-night sessions while Vasilios worked nearby. He smiled more, laughed more, seemed to glow with contentment. And Vasilios, ancient, powerful, jaded Vasilios, discovered what it meant to be truly happy. I never knew it could be like this, he admitted one evening, watching Wren cook dinner in the penthouse kitchen. So domestic, so peaceful. Wren looked up from the pasta he was stirring, his face soft with affection. You sound surprised. I am. I've lived through wars, plagues, revolutions. I've ruled kingdoms and built empires. But this coming home to you, watching you cook, talking about our days, this is better than any of it. That's because this is real life, Wren said, crossing to kiss him briefly. All that other stuff is exciting and important, but it's not what makes existence worth living. This is. These small, ordinary moments. They're not ordinary to me, Vasilios murmured, pulling Wren into his arms. Every moment with you is extraordinary. They made love that night with exquisite tenderness, learning each other's bodies, giving and receiving pleasure with equal focus. Vasilios was always so careful with his supernatural strength, always aware of Wren's human fragility. But Wren urged him to let go, to be himself, and the vampire learned to trust that his lover wouldn't break. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Wren's head on Vasilios's chest, the vampire's fingers tracing idle patterns on his skin. 3 more months, Wren said quietly. Then I'll be ready. Are you afraid? A little, but mostly I'm excited. To have forever with you, to see everything you'll show me, to be strong enough to stand beside you as an equal. Wren tilted his head to look up at Vasilios. Will it hurt? The turning? Yes, Vasilios admitted, seeing no point in lying. It's painful, I won't deny that. But it's quick, and I'll be with you the entire time. The moment you wake as vampire, The pain will be gone and you'll be more than you ever imagined. And you'll teach me how to control the bloodlust, how to use my new abilities. I'll teach you everything. You'll be powerful, Ren. My blood is ancient, strong. When you turn, you'll be formidable among our kind. Vasilios's voice filled with pride. My consort, my equal, my love. Consort? Ren's eyebrows rose. Is that a vampire thing? It's a royal thing. The vampire who stands at the king's side, who shares his power and authority. In human terms. Vasilios paused, then smiled. My husband, essentially. Ren's breath caught. You want to marry me? In every way that matters, I already consider you mine. But yes, Ren Young, I want to bind myself to you in every tradition, human and vampire alike. I want the world, both worlds, to know you belong to me and I to you. Yes, Ren breathed, his eyes shining. God, yes. Vas, I'd marry you tomorrow if I could. Then we will. Before the turning. While you're still human. A mortal ceremony, legal and binding in the human world. Then, after you transform, we'll have a vampire ceremony in front of my court, making you officially my consort. Vasilios cupped Ren's face, his touch infinitely gentle. 2 ceremonies, 2 worlds, 1 bond, forever. They kissed, deep and passionate, sealing the promise. And in the morning, Vasilios began making arrangements. The human wedding was small and perfect, held in the penthouse at sunset with Thorn and Lucian as witnesses. Ren wore a simple but elegant suit, his face radiant with joy. Vasilios wore black as always, but with silver accents that matched his eyes. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promises of eternal love and devotion that made even the ancient vampires watching feel the weight of the moment. I was dying in the snow when you found me, Ren said, his voice steady despite the tears streaming down his face. But you didn't just save my life, Vasilios. You gave me a reason to live. You showed me what it means to be loved completely, protected fiercely, cherished absolutely. You're my miracle, my impossible dream made real. And I promise to stand beside you, to love you, to be your partner and your equal for as long as we both exist. Vasilios, who'd commanded armies and negotiated with world leaders without showing emotion, felt his own eyes burn with unshed tears. I'd forgotten how to feel, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Centuries of existence had worn down my capacity for joy, for wonder, for love. I was a king without a kingdom of the heart, powerful but hollow. Then I found you, broken and freezing, and you looked at me like I was salvation itself. You saw past the monster to the man I'd almost forgotten I could be. You taught me to live again, Ren. And I promised to spend eternity making you happy, keeping you safe, loving you with everything I am. They kissed as newlyweds while Thorn and Lucian applauded, and Vasilios felt something slot into place in his chest, some final piece of himself finding home. The final months passed too quickly, and not quickly enough. Ren settled his mortal affairs, quit his job with regret but excitement for the future, donated most of his few possessions, wrote letters to distant relatives explaining he was moving away, which was true, in a sense he was moving into immortality. Vasilios prepared his court, announcing that he would soon present his consort, that a human would be joining their ranks as the king's equal. There was resistance, of course. Some vampires found the idea of a turned human becoming so powerful, distasteful. But Vasilios made it clear that any disrespect toward Ren would be considered a personal insult to him, and the grumbling stopped quickly. The night before the turning, Ren was quiet, thoughtful. They stood together at the penthouse windows, watching the city lights twinkle below, Ren's hand clasped in Vasilios's. Last night as a human, Ren said softly. Last time I'll see the sunrise. We can wait if you're not ready. No. Ren turned to face him, his expression certain. I'm ready. I've had my time to think, to prepare, to say goodbye. Tomorrow I start my forever with you. I want that, Vas. I want it more than anything. They made love one last time with Ren's mortal body, savoring every touch, every sensation. It was bittersweet and beautiful, a farewell to what was and a welcome to what would be. At dawn, they began. Vasilios had prepared a room specifically for this soundproofed, comfortable, private. He laid Ren on the bed, arranged pillows around him, made sure he was as comfortable as possible for what was to come. The pain will be intense, he warned again, needing Ren to understand. Your entire body will be transforming, dying and being reborn. It will feel like burning from the inside out, but I'll be here. I won't leave you for a second. I trust you, Ren said simply. He stretched out his hand, offering his wrist. I'm ready. Vasilios took that precious wrist, brought it to his lips, kissed the pulse point there with infinite tenderness. Then his fangs extended and he bit down, not to feed, but to inject his venom directly into Ren's bloodstream. Ren gasped at the initial pain, his body going rigid. Vasilios withdrew his fangs and quickly bit his own wrist, pressing it to Ren's mouth. Drink, he commanded gently. Take my blood. Let it change you. Ren drank, his survival instincts overriding any hesitation, and Vasilios felt the pull of it, felt his ancient blood flowing into his lover's body, beginning the transformation. After a few moments, he pulled away, carefully closing the wound with his tongue. Now we wait, he said, climbing onto the bed beside Ren, gathering him close. I've got you. No matter how bad it gets, I'm right here. The pain hit Ren in waves. He screamed, his body arching, every muscle locked in agony as vampire venom rewrote his DNA, killed his humanity, and rebuilt him into something new. Vasilios held him through it all, murmuring soothing words, stroking his hair, his presence a constant anchor in the storm of transformation. It lasted 3 days. 3 days of Ren burning with fever, convulsing with pain, crying out for relief that wouldn't come until the process was complete. Vasilios never left his side, suffering with him, feeling every scream like a knife to his own heart. Thorn checked in periodically, confirming the transformation was progressing normally, but there was nothing to be done except endure. On the 3rd night, Ren went suddenly still. His breathing stopped. His heart beat one final time, and then fell silent. For 10 minutes, he lay like death itself, his skin pale as marble, and Vasilios held his breath along with him, waiting, praying to gods he'd stopped believing in centuries ago. Then Ren's eyes opened. They were silver, pure, bright silver, glowing faintly in the dim room. He sat up slowly, gracefully, moving with the fluid strength of a newborn vampire. His skin had paled to match Vasilios's own, luminous and perfect. His dark hair now held threads of white, giving him an ethereal beauty that made Vasilios's breath catch. Vas? Ren's voice was the same but different, holding new resonance, new power. I'm here, Vasilios said, his own voice rough with relief. How do you feel? Ren looked down at his hands, flexing fingers that could now crush stone. Strong. So strong. And everything is... He looked around the room, his new vampire senses taking in details invisible to human eyes. I can see everything, hear everything. It's incredible. You're incredible, Vasilios said, reaching out to cup Ren's face. You're beautiful, powerful, perfect, and you're mine. Yours, Ren agreed, leaning into the touch. Then his expression changed, became hungry. Vas, I can smell. I know. The bloodlust is strongest in the beginning. Vasilios produced a crystal glass filled with blood human, donated, ethically sourced. Drink, it will help. Ren took the glass with trembling hands and drank deeply, the instincts of his new nature taking over. When he drained it, his eyes were clearer, more focused. Better? Vasilios asked. Better, still hungry, but better. Ren set the glass aside carefully, testing his new strength. When can I learn to control it? We'll start training tonight. I'll teach you everything how to manage the bloodlust, how to use your speed and strength, how to navigate vampire society as my consort. Vasilios pulled him close, kissing him deeply. Welcome to immortality, my love. They kissed again, and it was different now. 2 vampires, equals in power, matched in strength. Ren could kiss back without fear of breaking, could touch without restraint, and the freedom of it was intoxicating. Make love to me, Ren said against Vasilios's lips, as we really are, no holding back. They came together with supernatural passion, all pretense of human fragility gone. It was intense, overwhelming, perfect. Afterward, they lay tangled together, both sated and content. I don't regret it, Ren said quietly. Giving up the sun, mortality, my human life. This is better. You're worth everything. You're worth everything to me, Vasilios returned. My king consort, my eternal love. The vampire ceremony took place a month later, once Ren had mastered basic control over his new abilities. It was held in the grand hall of Vasilios's ancestral estate, a castle built into the mountains outside the city, hidden from human eyes by old magic and modern security. Hundreds of vampires attended, lords and ladies from across North America, representatives from other territories, all come to witness their king take a consort for the first time in living memory. Ren stood beside Vasilios before the assembled court, wearing robes of black and silver that marked him as royal, his new vampire beauty making several of the guests stare with appreciation. Vasilios wore his ceremonial armor, ancient and magnificent, every inch the warrior king. The ceremony was conducted in Old Latin, words of binding and power that tied Ren to Vasilios, not just emotionally, but magically, their very essences intertwining. When it was complete, Vasilios took Ren's hand and turned to face the court. "Behold Ren Dragomir," he announced, his voice carrying with supernatural projection. "My consort, my equal, my beloved. He stands beside me as your prince, second only to me in authority. You will show him the same respect and obedience you show me. This is my command as your king." The court bowed as one, acknowledging the new prince. Lucian stepped forward, offering Ren a circlet of silver, the consort's crown, and Vasilios himself placed it on Ren's head. "All hail, Prince Ren," Lucian called out. "All hail," the court echoed. Ren stood tall under their scrutiny, his silver eyes meeting theirs without fear, and Vasilios felt pride surge through him. This was his consort, his equal, his love. The human who'd been dying in the snow had become a vampire prince, powerful and regal. The celebration lasted through the night. Vampires danced and drank blood from crystal glasses and congratulated the newlywed consorts. Ren handled it all with grace, his natural intelligence and months of preparation serving him well as he navigated the complex politics of vampire society. As dawn approached, Vasilios and Ren slipped away from the party, retreating to the castle's highest tower where a bedroom had been prepared for them. The windows faced east, but they were shuttered against the coming sun, the room lit by candles and firelight. "Tired?" Vasilios asked, helping Ren out of the ceremonial robes. "Exhausted," Ren admitted, "but happy. So happy, Vas. Tonight was perfect. You were perfect. Every vampire in that room saw what I saw from the beginning, your strength, your intelligence, your worthiness to stand at my side." They climbed into the massive bed together, Ren curling against Vasilios, just as he had when he was human. Some things didn't change, even with immortality. "Tell me about forever," Ren said softly. "About our future. What will we do with eternity?" Vasilios thought about it, his mind ranging across centuries to come. "We'll travel," he said. "I'll show you the world, every continent, every wonder, places I've loved and places I've never been. We'll be scholars, warriors, artists, whatever we choose. We'll make our mark on history together." "And we'll come back here," Ren added, "to this castle, to the penthouse, to the places that are ours. We'll build a life, not just exist through the ages." "Yes," Vasilios agreed, kissing the top of Ren's head. "We'll live, truly live, for the first time in my very long existence." "Because of love," Ren said. "Because of love," Vasilios confirmed. "Because I found you dying in the snow and couldn't walk away. Because you looked at a monster and saw someone worth loving. Because fate, or chance, or divine intervention brought us together." "Best alley I ever almost died in," Ren said with a slight smile. Vasilios laughed, the sound genuine and warm. "Best rescue I ever made." They were quiet for a while, comfortable in the silence, in each other's presence. Outside, the sun rose over a world they could no longer walk in during daylight, but neither of them missed it. They had each other, had forever, had love that transcended the boundaries between human and vampire, mortal and immortal. "Vas," Ren said sleepily. "Thank you. For saving me, for loving me, for giving me forever." "Thank you for letting me," Vasilios returned, for seeing past the monster, for choosing this life with me, for making my immortality meaningful again. I love you. I love you, Ren Dragomir, my consort, my prince, my heart. Vasilios tightened his arms around him. Forever. Forever, Ren echoed, and they fell asleep together as the sun climbed higher in the sky. Two vampires at peace, two halves of one whole, two souls bound by love stronger than death itself. Years passed, then decades. Vasilios and Ren became legendary among vampire kind, the ancient king and his consort, devoted beyond measure, powerful beyond question. They ruled North America with wisdom and strength, making their territory prosperous and peaceful. They traveled as Vasilios had promised, seeing wonders old and new, making memories that would last through eternity. But always, they returned home. To the penthouse in the city where they'd first kissed, to the castle in the mountains where they'd wed, to each other. On the 50th anniversary of the night Vasilios had found Ren in the snow, they stood together in that same alley. It had changed over the decades, gentrified, cleaned up, no longer dangerous, but the location remained the same. 50 years, Ren said, looking at the spot where he'd nearly died. Seems like yesterday and forever ago at the same time. The nature of immortality, Vasilios said, his arm around Ren's waist. Time becomes fluid, elastic, but some moments remain crystal clear. I remember every detail of that night, the snow falling, the scent of your blood, the way you looked at me like I was your salvation. You were, Ren said simply. You saved me in every way a person can be saved. We saved each other, Vasilios corrected. You gave me back my humanity, my capacity to feel and love. Without you, I was just existing, ruling without purpose, living without truly being alive. Ren turned in his arms, silver eyes meeting silver eyes, two vampires who'd found each other against all odds. Here's to the next 50 years, and the 50 after that, and all the centuries to come. To forever, Vasilios agreed, and kissed him there in the alley where their story had begun, where a dying human and a lonely vampire had found the love that would sustain them through eternity. The snow began to fall again, fat white flakes drifting down from the dark sky, and they stood wrapped in each other's arms, watching it blanket the city in white, beautiful, eternal, and utterly complete. Their story had started with blood in the snow and a vampire king's rage at injustice. It had grown through trust, passion, and the bridging of two worlds, and it would continue, endless and loving, for as long as the stars wheeled overhead and the earth spun through space. Two souls, once separate, now bound forever. One love transcending death itself, eternal.